Supercommunicator. Great communicators don't just talk, they transform. Charles Duhigg, author of the best-selling The Power of Habit, returns with a bold new message. Communication is no longer just a soft skill, it's a strategic advantage. In Supercommunicator, he unpacks the neuroscience, psychology, and real-world strategies that help everyday professionals become master influencers. Most people think good communication is about having the right words, but in truth, it's about having the right intention. It's about connection, the kind that builds trust, sparks collaboration, and compels people to act. This book redefines how we talk, listen, persuade, and show up in meetings, in relationships, and in moments that matter. Supercommunicators don't wing it. They're intentional, empathetic, and strategic. They don't try to be the loudest in the room. They aim to be the clearest. And most importantly, they don't just talk to win. They talk to understand, align, and inspire. Let's dive into the mechanics of communication that can elevate your leadership, your influence, and your entire life. Chapter 1. Why most communication fails. Communication fails not because people aren't trying, but because they're trying in the wrong way. Most people focus on what they want to say, rather than what others need to hear. We assume clarity because we understand ourselves. But the gap between what we say and what others hear is often much wider than we think. Charles Duhigg breaks down this invisible communication gap. He explains that when miscommunication happens, it's rarely because of bad intent. It's because of unspoken assumptions. We assume people know our context. We assume they interpret our tone the same way. We assume our message is landing, but often it's not. The supercommunicator does something different. They don't try to say more. They aim to say what matters. They ask questions before assuming alignment. They slow down to clarify, not to control, but to connect. This chapter reminds us that miscommunication doesn't just waste time, it damages trust, it derails progress, it creates silos, resentment, and inefficiency. When we don't take time to check in, repeat, and simplify, we leave people guessing, and guessing kills collaboration. True communication begins with the humility to say, "Let me make sure we're on the same page." That's where connection begins. Chapter 2. 3 types of conversations. Not all conversations are created equal, and the supercommunicator's real power lies in their ability to identify what kind of conversation they're having, and adjust accordingly. According to Duhigg, there are 3 main types of conversations: practical, emotional, and social. Practical conversations deal with logistics, tasks, data, and outcomes. These are where clarity is key, and solutions take center stage. But when you bring logic into a conversation that's emotional or social, you lose the audience. That's why most misunderstandings happen. Emotional conversations, on the other hand, are about values, fears, disappointments, and desires. In these moments, people don't need facts. They need to feel seen, heard, and validated. You can't solve emotion with spreadsheets. You solve it with empathy. Then there are social conversations, the most subtle and often the most overlooked. These deal with status, identity, and belonging. These are the conversations beneath the conversation. When someone is posturing, withdrawing, or reacting strongly, it's often because their sense of safety or worth is being threatened, even unconsciously. Supercommunicators are agile. They know when to switch tones, shift questions, and pause logic in favor of connection. They don't just ask, "What are we talking about?" They ask, "What's really going on underneath?" Understanding the type of conversation gives you the roadmap to guide it well and lead it powerfully. Chapter 3. Listening is a leadership skill. We've been taught that great speakers change minds. But the truth is, great listeners change lives. Supercommunicators are elite listeners, not because they nod and wait their turn to talk, but because they're fully present. They listen beyond the words. They listen for emotion, intent, and meaning. Charles Duhigg explains that listening is not passive. It's active leadership. When you mirror language, you tell the speaker, "I hear you." When you reflect emotion, you say, "I feel you." When you ask clarifying questions, you signal curiosity, and curiosity builds trust. Too many leaders listen to fix, but supercommunicators listen to understand. They validate without rescuing. They hold space even when there's tension. They make it safe for others to share their full selves, which creates breakthroughs in relationships and teams. Listening is also about noticing what's not being said. Silence, hesitation, shifts in tone, these are data points. When you tune in, you begin to see patterns and hear subtext. You begin to understand people, not just words. In a noisy world, being a great listener is a competitive advantage, because when people feel heard, they open up. And when they open up, connection becomes inevitable. Chapter 4. Telling Stories That Land. Data informs, but stories move. In this chapter, Duhigg dives deep into the psychology of storytelling and why humans are wired to remember, believe, and act on information that is embedded in narrative. Stories build emotional resonance. They help people feel something, and emotion is the gateway to memory. When you tell a story that mirrors your audience's challenges, dreams, or fears, you don't just deliver content, you create connection. Stories also bring clarity. Abstract ideas become tangible. Complex strategies become simple. Dry statistics come alive when attached to real names, faces, and moments. But here's the key. Your story isn't about you. It's about them. It's about showing your audience a version of themselves, someone they can root for, relate to, or learn from. Supercommunicators use stories to shift beliefs, invite reflection, and lead people toward action. Duhigg emphasizes structure. Every great story has a beginning, conflict, a middle, struggle, and an end, resolution or lesson. And every great story is told with purpose. Ask yourself, what belief am I trying to change? What decision am I trying to inspire? Storytelling isn't decoration, it's direction. And when done well, it transforms communication from transactional to transformational. Chapter 5. How to Change Minds Without Losing Yours. We live in a world of polarized opinions and heated disagreements. But supercommunicators know how to influence without arguing. They shift from debate to dialogue, from defensiveness to discovery. Charles Duhigg introduces a powerful concept, collaborative truth-seeking. Instead of trying to win an argument, the goal is to uncover shared truths. This means asking questions like, what do we both care about? Or, what would success look like for both of us? It also means listening for what isn't being said. Often, the real disagreement is buried under assumptions or misinterpreted intentions. When you ask the right questions and respond with empathy, people drop their defenses. They begin to see you not as a threat, but as a partner. Changing minds starts with openness, not just from the other person, but from you. Are you willing to learn something new? Are you willing to be influenced even as you try to influence? Duhigg reminds us, persuasion doesn't require domination. It requires clarity, trust, and humility. Supercommunicators don't force change. They facilitate it. And in doing so, they build bridges where others build walls. Conversations that change lives. Supercommunicator is more than a communication book. It's a playbook for building relationships, leading teams, closing sales, resolving conflicts, and shaping the world around you, all through the power of words. Whether you're leading a company, launching a brand, raising a family, or building a movement, your ability to communicate defines your impact. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you connect, these are not just soft skills. They're the foundation of influence. Charles Duhigg gives you the science, the structure, and the soul of high-level communication. And once you learn to communicate like a supercommunicator, with clarity, empathy, and strategic intent, your message won't just be heard, it will be felt, believed, and acted upon. This was Supercommunicator by Charles Duhigg, brought to you by Success Resources Books Insights. You don't need to become more, you need to become present. This is more than mindset. It's a mission. Keep seeking, keep growing, keep giving, and together, let's make the world rich again.